The Two Flags of the Cape. Willem lived at the edge of the world, or at least it felt that way. He spent his mornings on the rocky slopes above the harbor, watching the clouds tumble over the flat top of the great mountain. To him, the Cape of Good Hope was a place of endless wind and salt. One January morning in 1806, the horizon changed. Willem saw them first, a forest of masts rising from the sea. There were 63 ships in total, their white sails catching the morning light like the wings of giant gulls. The British fleet had arrived to claim the Cape once again. The town was filled with the sound of drums and the heavy boots of soldiers. Willem's father, Hendrik, pulled him close as they watched the Dutch defenders march out toward the valley of Blouberg. "The world is changing, Willem," Hendrik said quietly. "We must be brave." Far from the town, the smoke of cannons rose into the sky. Arthur, a young British midshipman no older than Willem's brother, stepped off a longboat onto the sandy beach. The sand was hot, and his heavy wool uniform felt stiff, but he marched forward with his company. The Battle of Blouberg was short. Soon, the news reached the town that the Dutch governor had surrendered. At the castle, the old flag was lowered. Arthur stood with his commander, General Baird, as the colorful Union Jack was raised high into the bright blue African sky. A few days later, the city was quiet. Willem sat by a stone fountain in the market square, wondering if he would have to learn a new language. He saw a boy in a red and blue uniform sitting alone on a nearby bench, looking at a piece of paper. It was Arthur. Willem walked over slowly. He didn't know English, and Arthur didn't know Dutch. Arthur looked up and saw the curious boy. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a hard, dry sea biscuit. He offered half of it to Willem with a small, nervous smile. Willem took the biscuit and, in return, reached into his satchel. He pulled out a bright, sweet orange he had picked from the garden that morning. He handed it to Arthur. They sat together on the bench, sharing a snack that tasted of the sea and the sun. Arthur spread his map out on his lap so Willem could see. He pointed to a tiny island far to the north. "London," Arthur whispered. Willem smiled and pointed to the massive, flat mountain towering over the town. "Table Mountain," Willem replied. The flags had changed, and the soldiers now wore different colors, but the wind at the Cape still smelled of salt. As the sun began to set, Willem and Arthur looked out at the ships in the bay. They were no longer enemies, just two boys in a very big world.